Hello and welcome to Breaking Barriers, the podcast for CompTIA's managed services community. I'm Miles Jobjian, Community Director with CompTIA, and with me today is Mike Goldstein of LAN Infotech, who, among other things, is a volunteer on the Executive Council for the MSP community. So we're going to try something a little bit new, calling it the MSP Spotlight. I'll be interviewing a bunch of different MSP owners and executives with the same series of questions, and over time, we're going to find some interesting commonalities and maybe even better, some interesting differences of opinion that'll give you, the listeners, just some kind of new ways to think about things. So with that, Mike, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to contribute.
Excellent. Thank you. Tell me a little bit about LAN Infotech to get us started.
Perfect. So we are based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We're 20 people. I'm the president and CEO. We've been in business 10 years and have a big vertical in both the legal industry and the not-for-profit industry.
It definitely, especially nonprofit, in definite need of tech support. So that's great. Kind of thinking back, what kind of brought you to start this company up? What brought you to bring LAN Infotech into life?
So LAN Infotech was an offshoot of another company I worked for. About 28 years ago, I started up in New York with a small, I guess we weren't called managed service providers then, but we were just a VAR. And we grew that company from 4 employees up to 65 across multiple cities. Moved down to Florida, and it was just the natural progression. I was traveling between Miami, Raleigh, Washington, New York, New Jersey, and really kind of fell in love with the South Florida community and realized that, what we did in New York City was much different than what we might do in South Florida, what we might do in Raleigh. So it was great to have an opportunity to start over. Florida was just an interesting region. We have clients as far south as Key West, all the way up to Tallahassee, and a lot of international clients.
That's interesting. You noted in a couple of things, and it sounds like maybe part of the move to Florida has to do with just some of your own values and how you'd like that to show up in your business. Is that something that is representative there, or how does that kind of come through?
You know what? In growing through the business, really the honesty of that is that legal was my background. And probably about 28 years ago, we started, a large practice in Florida with a large firm and agreed to open up an office. And we opened the office, and it was very difficult to find someone that would, start the business up the way you would want it started up. And I was commuting down a lot. I lived in Queens with my wife and 2 kids. And I guess after I missed a couple of great winter storms, guilty as sitting on the beach here, it was a real good opportunity to move my family, out of the city into, early Florida. We're down here 23 years. So,
oh, wow.
So I think the separation of time just came for, a change of technology, a change of values being, I guess everybody wants to be the driver, not necessarily the passenger.
Excellent. Okay. So you want to be the driver. So obviously you got something that you feel like is, you're just really, really good at, or that your organization does really well. So can you describe one thing that you would consider best in class that LAN Infotech does?
Well, I think really understanding that no matter what size, client you are, you're entitled to Class A service. So I think that we bring great services to all, different size firms. And on the reverse side of it, we work with a lot of great vendors that are in place there. We really value the relationships that we've built in being able to get education on new technology and bring that technology out to our customer. Not necessarily just knock on the door yearly and say, hey, your contract's up for renewal, or hey, Windows 7 is end of life, things along those lines. I think our customers and our vendors truly view us as a partner, not necessarily the vendor or the client.
Gotcha. I'd like to dig into that a little bit. Can you put a finger on what it is maybe that, that is it through your service, or is it through a process? Is it just through hiring the right people? What is it that you say your service is, and regardless of the size of the client, right, they deserve that top class service. What is it, that you think maybe gets you that edge?
We're all consumers in some way, shape, or form. I travel a lot, I entertain a lot, I go to things, and I really want to treat the customer how I want to be treated as a customer. If you go to a restaurant and you go to a local business and something goes wrong, you expect the owner to kind of make it right, and they want you to come back. So I really am upfront with our customers. Listen, we're going to have amazing days, and we're going to have days that maybe we're not so proud of, because we all have to deal with people, processes, and things. And as long as we can keep the communication going and going out there and make sure that the customer understands what we're going through, not that we're just waiting on a call back from tech support. Why didn't you call me for 4 hours? So I think it's a constant communication that we have to keep up. And like I said, treat your customer how you would want to be treated in any situation.
That's solid. That's good. So clearly that's, a message that's coming down through all 20 of your people, right? That they just have that customer focus the whole time.
Right. And, the client really has another job to do. 20 plus years ago, we were rolling trucks. And, we would all, our complaints would be mass transit, traffic, all those kind of things. Now that we're in this world of, we sit in the office, we remotely do a lot of support, we want the client to understand that, hey, we do try to bring our engineers on site. We want them to know who they're dealing with. We want them to see a face. I want them to take my phone call just because they want to talk to me, not thinking, oh man, here's Mike calling me to sell him something else. Like I said, that's why I think it's more of a relationship, whether you're a 2-person client or a 2,000-seat client.
Gotcha. It sounds like you can have a bevy of options to pick from for this question, but what is one of your favorite success stories that you've seen, be it an individual or a job or a vendor? What's something that you've seen in your time that's just been just blowing you away?
You know what? A few years ago, we got involved a lot more in the community and involving ourselves with Chamber of Commerce's, and that's how we got involved with not-for-profits. Probably it was 4 years ago, we formed a relationship with the Dan Marino Institute that re-educates autistic children, and we accepted an internship. I run the technology committee for the Fort Lauderdale Chamber. The Institute contacted me to talk about how they can get some opportunities with the Chamber. But in the end, we had 4 interns come in and work with us for 6 months. Actually, it was 4 for 5 months. And, you don't know what to expect. You have these children with disabilities coming in to work into your office. They trained us. They brought in a person to explain to us, what the challenges were with working with these students. And I got to tell you that we kind of all fell in love with them. We put them through some training. We showed them all aspects of our MSP business. I'm a really big hockey fan. And I started the first day, they told me that I had to give them homework assignments. So I thought of something, and we gave them Office 365 accounts and instructions on how to get it set. And my homework assignment was for them to go home and watch the Florida Panthers hockey team. And I gave them 3 players that were my favorite players. And I said, why don't you watch hockey, get your account up and running, and when you get it up, email me if you see something interesting about any of these 3 players. I will tell you that my phone blew up that night. The second day of the internship, the director called me and asked me to come meet. And then in that meeting, she asked, did you give them a homework assignment? And I said, well, if it was a really good homework assignment, yes, I did give it to them. But if it was a bad one, it was my office admin. And she told me how ecstatic the parents were that the students took this to heart and they had this connection with hockey. And during the rest of that season, I would bring them things from the game. We'd explain different things to them. And, when the internship was over, it was just one of those things where everybody was, the day after, everyone looked to see in the conference room where our students were. And it was just one of those great rewarding things to pass some information out to them, to work with them and see their eyes light up of the littlest things that were out there. And I got to share, my passion of hockey and IT with them.
That's great. I love it.
One of those things that we were able to do. We did a similar internship this year with a smaller number of students, and I volunteer there to help them during their CompTIA classes, because they offer CompTIA and Microsoft certified professional classes. So I come in once or twice a year to talk to the students about business and those types of things. So that was one of my big accomplishments that was out there, and I take it really personal, and I love that we had the opportunity to do it. and involve two of my favorite passions.
That's awesome. And as a fellow hockey nut myself, I love that you're preaching the word, right? We need more. That's great. That is great.
During that season, I had told them I was going to the game, and I remember the date because it was on my one of my son's birthday, and it was the 20th anniversary of the Year of the Rat for the Panthers.
Oh, yes.
So I tried to explain to them I'll be at the game, and they just kept saying that, thinking that they were going to see me on TV. So that night they gave out, 1996 rats. So I brought them back. I put it all on their desks, and I explained it. And they kept that little rat with the 1996 date for the whole internship on there. And as people would come in and visit them from the institute and stuff, it was interesting to hear their interpretation of why that black plastic rat
was there
on their laptop.
That's great. That was a fun season too. I do remember that. That was fun.
My first season down here. We've been season ticket holders since then, and believe it or not, probably 4 years ago, for 3 years, we did the full IT services for the hockey club for the arena. It was kind of cool.
Oh wow, that's great. That's great. So, all right, I'm going to kind of turn the corner a little though. When you look around kind of the landscape of MSPs today, what scares you? What's the biggest challenge that is facing maybe not only yourself, but the industry as a whole? What would you like to speak to there? What's challenging out there right now?
Cyber. Mm-hmm. We've been preaching it for years, and to see, managed service providers as targets is even scarier at this point. To see our name as managed service providers on the Homeland Security list, to hear all the stories every night, it's one of those things that does keep me awake, because we all have to try to be, a step ahead, and it's kind of difficult, and that's been the biggest challenge for us.
So how do you kind of prepare for some of that unexpected, some of that maybe at this point should be expected, but what are some of the things that you kind of keep top in mind or emphasize with staff, or how do you prepare for the unpreparable, right?
So we did practice what we preached when the Homeland Security notice came out, and so we feel that internally we have to eat our own dog food. So from September till the end of December last year, we took an internal project of trying to secure every system that we had in the cloud. So we went through everything that we did, everything that we touched. We reset up security. We put two-factor authentication in. Not that we didn't have it before, but we went through every process, procedure, policy that we had to make sure that we were looking over our shoulder. It took us, 3 months. On top of that, also, we're a member of InfraGard. InfraGard is FBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security. So anyone listening in any city, anyone can join InfraGard. And we happened to sit through an FBI presentation on Office 365 and how to secure Office 365, maybe a little more documented than Microsoft did. And we went through, besides our internal processes, we went through every Office 365 tenant that we had, and we went through all the policies and procedures. We went through it actually 3 times, because as we finished the first one, we found other things. So we found that we have to practice what we preach and really make sure that we have all of our, I's dotted and T's crossed, just like our clients.
That is so important. And just like your clients, one of the, threats that you don't, really want to think about a whole lot sometimes can even be that internal person, right? The terminated employee, and making sure that all their access is closed off and things like that as well, which is part and parcel of that full internal audit. Yeah.
And I think security isn't meant to be fun. So some of our instances of way we do support today, that there's only a couple people that get the two-factor authentication code that goes back. So our help desk might have to ask a supervisor to give them the code.
Oh, okay.
We've made it a little harder for ourselves, but we understand the challenge to see some of the things that have gone on. Some of the cities close to our heart in Florida here that they had to pay ransom and go out there. I mean, it really is an epidemic around I do think an epidemic around the world, and us as the holders of the keys for our clients, I kind of view that. And the bad guys are definitely smart. Why try to go after 1,000 people when I can hit 50 of them that have the keys to 10,000?
Yep. Yep.
So I think that we are definitely targets, and we have to, as business owners and managed service providers, we have to take that seriously. And that's the biggest thing that we've been focusing on, preaching. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I just looked at my calendar. I have 8 speaking engagements already that are set up with various organizations, people, events that we're doing, because we really preach it.
It's so important, and you're right. Just because any hole in that fabric that we're laying over everybody is a hole that anything can get through, right? So if it be a single employee or an MSP or your client or your vendor or your technology or wherever there is that's
Right.
just not covered properly, oh my gosh.
I mean, it used to be, you look at that stat that, these businesses don't survive, a disaster when we were talking about disaster recovery.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that one breach, where there's tons of us in every city, state, county, no one wants to be on that list. No one wants to get that newsletter because we've seen it in our industry over the past 3 months. Some of the industry magazines aren't shy to, just like the TVs, the regular news organizations, to say company XYZ had a breach.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the wrong end of that headline. So maybe related to security, but it could be really anything, that there's always the next big thing coming in tech, right? There's the next technology, the next evolution, the next thing, whatever it be. A lot of times those things kind of end up being fizzled out, right? And it just doesn't work. There's no real business case maybe. What do you do to kind of determine when that hype cycle grows to be something real and is applicable for you? How do you kind of make that judgment? Because it does seem to be a bit of an art.
It is. I think that the key thing is, as a business owner, I have to be well informed, and I use organizations like CompTIA. You have to read some not vendor specific literature to look at the trends that go out there. ChannelCon, you got to be out there at events. I go to Microsoft Inspire. I'm very involved with the channel company and their exchange events. I think that you have to be involved in industry events where you're talking to your peers to find out what they're doing. And I think we're only as good as our network. So we're just looking at trends. Yes, been a member of CompTIA forever, but it's great to see some of those emerging technologies, see where it goes, cross-reference it with your other big manufacturer vendors. Distribution's a big source of information. So we parse through those. We're out there at events, seeing, touching, feeling, and trying to figure out how that would affect our customers and what could be that next wave.
That's great advice, because I love the angle of just being out there, right? Being at those events and talking to people, and because I don't think there's any point, at least personally, I hear something one time, it sits in your brain and you consider it, and then you hear about it again, and then all of a sudden maybe you make a connection in your brain that says, hey, wait a minute, I'm doing this thing over here, and this solution maybe could help me with that. But that usually doesn't dawn, that very first time you come across something. So you have to be repeatedly exposed to all of the different opportunities and neat new tech that's out there to kind of, let your brain process it and then start lining things up.
And that's why you have to surround yourself by good organizations, good technology vendors, different organizations, and you have to rely on your peers. The peer network is the greatest thing. Sometimes people say it's really lonely at the top. You go to an event, that's why I'm involved in CompTIA. I'm involved with this. You want to meet other people like you in different parts of the country. Or, when I go to Microsoft Inspire, I make it a point to meet 4 different people. It's one of my own little goals in different parts of the world, that go out there. And it doesn't make a difference what language they're speaking. Windows is still Windows, and, cyber is still cyber. And you find that it doesn't make a difference where you are in the world. We all suffer from the same types of challenges. It just might look a little different.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Big last question for you.
Okay.
You're walking down the trail of life. Up ahead of you, behind some glowing light, is the ultimate guru of IT solutions and support. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. What would you want to ask this person?
What is that next great trend? When we look at this, so I started my IT career in 1983. I remember that I graduated school. I grew up in the PC age, and you look at all of the things that have jumped on board and changed. And if we can only have some insight as to what that next great wave is, because, those people that are involved early are the guys that become the best at it. And I always look at that my grandfather used to always joke about. He was a big player in the stock market. And I used to joke that by the time you read about it in the New York Times, the deal was gone already. So we want to have what that next big wave would be. And you want to get involved early and you want to get involved heavy so that you're that expert by the time peers are finding out about it. That's my goal. We want to have that little crystal ball to see what that next wave is. Today, is it cyber? Is it 5G? Is it artificial intelligence? Is it something that we're not seeing in the cloud? So having that old little magic 8-ball, shaking it a few times and coming up with that technology.
That would be useful. All right, so tech, get on that. Everybody has just experienced our first MSP Spotlight session, and Mike, I think you did amazing. That was great. Thank you for your commentary.
I had fun, and like I try to keep those values, go out there and practice what I preach.
Excellent. Thank you for listening to today's Breaking Barriers podcast. We're going to keep this going. Michael, thank you very much today.
Thank you.